So I'm going to be using this one here, but before I actually start, I want to show you some of the prep work that I did. Now, one of the things that I did in order to see what was going on here was I went into, okay, let me just do this again. I think I was a little bit too fast. If you click on the hamburger menu here and you go to panel options down here, then you can choose your thumbnail size, which is by default it's like this. I went here, so I made it bigger, as you can see, and then instead of entire document, which is what you will have as a default, I went to layer bounds and I made everything much bigger and much more visible. And the reason for that is this. Now, when I go back in the history palette and when I open this thing, then it looks like this, and it's pretty much impossible to figure out where what is. Now, one of the things that you need to do with these mock-ups, of which there are quite a few in that cosmetics folder, these white mock-ups, is you need to, there are boxes and bottles, and you need to close the eye of the boxes and you only need to keep the bottles open, because otherwise you get all kinds of weird stuff going on, and everything, as you can see, is white. So what I did is I found the different layers. So it's these two here, and they are separate, you need to keep them separate, and I colored them. I colored all of them, as you can see, the caps, everything, so that I can actually find things easily. Now, what will happen is that when you update one of these, all of them will get updated, all of the ones of the same color. I already tried that out, but this is a good way of cleaning up the document so that you can actually work easily, because it can end up becoming quite nightmarish to find where what is, unless you have a kind of a color coding that you can get started with. So that's the very first thing that I did. Okay, now this is the finished label, which I'm now going to have to transfer onto this thing here, and I just want to go over the history palette and not show you exactly how I did this in Photoshop. You know, you already know all of that, but I want to explain to you the design strategy. Now, on a label you have an incredible amount of information, and that information needs to get hierarchized, and it also needs to get put in such a way that things don't interfere with each other. So it's one of the things that you can do, one of the strategies that you can employ when you're making a label, is to create separate areas, which could be boxes, like the way that I've done it here, in order to separate things. Another one would be to put a lot of space between things. So let's just go here and let's see. If I open this here, for example, this putting things inside boxes, or you know, with frames with very clearly demarcated areas, that is something that people do a lot, and in fact here they are almost telling you to do that. You know, in this template they are almost showing you this way of doing it, which is to separate things into boxed areas. Or here's another example where we have, here's a box. I mean, the way that they've put this text here I think is pretty bad, but that aside, here's a box with a certain amount of information. Here's a separate box for the slogan, the finest chocolate, and for the title there's a separate box, which is pretty much what I did as well. But then sometimes you can also, you may not be able to see those boxes that clearly, but we have them here as well. This up here is a box. Because of the illustration and everything, you may get confused, but it sure is a box, and this is a box, and this is a box. So again, when they were doing this label, they made clearly separated areas in order to put different kinds of information, because there's a lot of information, and if you don't demarcate these different areas, then things might end up becoming confusing. Again, here we have this area here, and then this area here, and here there's quite a bit of space, which is why they were able to do this like that. But usually, because a label is a small little thing, and you have a lot of information, usually you don't have the luxury of that much space. So that is why you make different areas for different things. So these here, for example, are really good examples to that. So up here we have one area, then we have something that separates it with an illustration in the middle, and then here we have something else. So in all 6 of these, they are using that boxing strategy, which is exactly what I used as well. So now let me get back to this. So I went through a whole lot of stuff, which again, like I said, I'm not going, like here for example, I'm playing with this Utriat thing. I'm not going to go into everything that I did here. You will be able to figure that out. Kept adding boxes, played around with fonts, made things bigger, smaller, not very interesting really. I had a lot of trouble with this Utriat word until I had the idea of putting it on a vertical, which completely changed the whole design, brought everything together, and also gave me a nice bit of space here, and I have a nice bit of space here. Spaces on labels, like I said, are at a premium, so I kept duplicating type and changing what it said. So I just made vücut losyonu out of eşek sütü, for example. Let's see. I changed the slogan. My slogan was mutlu eşeklerden sevgilerle. But I actually changed that to çayırlarda otlayan mutlu eşeklerden sevgilerle, which to translate into English means with love from the happy donkeys who are grazing in the meadows. Just change leadings, change spacing, and then I also had to add all of these other elements that are part of the hierarchy, such as for example the word organic, which I put on top of eşek sütü. Let's see, not tested on animals got added. I made it smaller. Then I added the 500 ml, which I made big because, you know, I want people to see that they're getting a lot of stuff. Added another band for the date since 1894, which initially I was going to keep on the bottom here, but then I had this idea that it would probably be better on the top. Change it to gray. Let's see. What happened is that when I did all of that, let's see, if I go back here, I had to move the whole label down, because first of all there was too much space down here, and also because when I put the date on the top it kind of rolled over, which I didn't like, so everything got moved down. And I think I moved it down, yeah, I moved it down even more, made the date bigger, made this darker, this area darker, because I couldn't read the organic really well, so I needed to do that. And then finally, that's what I ended up with. Now, I'm going to have to put this onto here, which is not going to be easy because this is a vertical design. Now it's going to become horizontal, which means a lot of things are going to have to change here. And that's what I will do next, and then show you the result of that when I'm done. Now, before I do this one, I did this bottle here. However, something happened here. When I dragged, what I did is I just dragged everything in this PSB file, which is this one right here, in here, and then just reduced the size. And then when I saved it, I saw that this proportion here, look, this is much narrower and longer than this one, actually doesn't work on this one. This one needed to get resized. So what I did is I made this wider. Reduced the size first and then made it quite a bit wider. So when you look at this text here and this text here, they are quite different. So here they look the same. Here it looks like these are both the same. But when you look in the PSB files, then you can see right away that this text here is much more condensed than this text here, because this here I actually had to scale in such a way that it became wider. The height stayed the same, but the width became more. And although it's wrong here, and I know that I have said that we should never ever transform text in that way, in this case there's no choice but to do it, because otherwise these two labels don't look the same. This one looks much narrower than this one. So I just wanted to show you that before I now actually start working on this one, where I'm pretty sure that there are going to be problems like that as well, because in fact there are going to be more problems because this is a completely different format. It's horizontal. Okay, so this is done now as well, and it worked easier than I actually anticipated, but obviously the design has changed. Because this is vertical, this is horizontal. I lost the white area. I'm not sure if I want to add that here or not. I tried it, and in fact I can try it again. It seems to break things up in a way that I'm not completely happy with, but I'll just do it again right now. See, it's really breaking things up, and I'm not happy with that. Even though it creates design consistency, there's no doubt about that. Here, it's working. It's working because the white area is joining the bottle, and here it's joining the bottom of the jar, which doesn't seem to give enough of a reference. So I think I'm going to forget about that. I think here I may, well, actually hold on, let's just try that as well. What we could maybe possibly do is add a very narrow white like this, and let's see, does that help us with the consistency? Yes, it seems to. However, then I'm not exactly sure whether this isn't over-design. And to be honest with you, I think it is. I mean, is this box serving a purpose? Is it really doing anything there? Well, the jury is out, as they say. I'm not completely sure about whether this should be here or not. Maybe if I align it with the bottom here, let's try that as well. Well, it is aligned with that, so well, almost aligned with that anyway, and that doesn't seem to make much of a difference either, so I'm not sure. I'm gonna leave it for now. But anyway, basically all that happened is that the logo is still on the right hand side, this is still on the top, but you know, all of these here, all this stuff here, has now moved to the left, and that is how I managed to create that sameness. And I just noticed, whoa, that's interesting, my thingy seems to have slipped. This one here, it seems to have slipped. That's funny. I don't remember. Oh, this is the wrong one. I need to have the big one. How did that happen? Even more, so that it's now exactly where it was supposed to be. Okay, and now I'm just going to change the background, and then this will basically be done. Okay, so I darkened the layer, the background, which actually works as a smart object. So you double click on it and then you do it. Now what I want to do is I want to add that gradient that I've been using on the other ones as well. And I'm going to do it differently this time. Now here on the base I can tell just by looking at this mask here that this, if I select this, I will only be selecting these, and sure enough that is exactly what is happening. Now if I add, and I've just added a new layer, if I add a layer mask to this, and the selection is now on the layer because I've clicked on the layer mask and I have the selection. So if I just, and I have black on top here, so if I fill this, I will get the reverse of this here. Now if I just deselect and go to the gradient tool and now go to the layer, not the mask but the layer, and I can just add that gradient now in any way that I want. Now by default the layer mask is linked to the layer. You see the little linky thing here, and if I were to move this in this state, then what would happen is that this would happen. But I can unlink that, which I've done just now, and now this will move separately. The mask will only protect that area, and I can do whatever the hell I like with the rest of it, which I'm going to make this narrower now, for example, and move it up a little bit more. And now I'm just going to go back and darken the background a bit more. Maybe it was better the way it was. So okay, so now all I really need to do is make a nice crop, and Bob's your uncle, as they say. And I can now save this as Figure Cosmetics Label 1. And I will see you later in the next label tutorial, which will be something completely different.